Hi, I'm Dirk Lohan from Chicago, and you are listening to U.S. Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to U.S. Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. Today, in our ongoing series, Children of Genius. U.S. Modernist Radio welcomes Charlee Deaton, daughter of architect Charles Deaton. And later on, special musical guest, the Luca Colonna Trio. And now, someone never referred to as a genius. George Smart.
Hi, folks. Yes, the MacArthur Genius Grant people did not call this year. Again. I keep sending them holiday cards and little smiley faces on Facebook, and nothing seems to get their attention or their giant check. Plus, all those really brilliant people keep doing brilliant, deserving things. So there's that. If you've been listening to our past shows, and we know you have, you are familiar with a special series called Children of Genius. The first show featured Susan Saarinen, daughter of Eero Saarinen, and Raymond Neutra, son of Richard Neutra. The second one featured Emily Ain, daughter of Gregory Ain, and Randy Koenig, son of Pierre Koenig. And today, in the third installment of Children of Genius, we meet the daughter of Charles Deaton, a name you might not know, but whose most famous house you're going to recognize. First, though, it's a few words about our delightful sponsor,
who lets George write these crazy stories about her.
Modernist realtor Angela Roll.
In our continuing fabricated saga, modernist real estate agent Angela Roll was swimming atop the Marina Bay Sands Hotel in Singapore, designed by architect Moshe Safdie. Yeah, it's the same $8 billion hotel you saw in the movie Crazy Rich Asians. It also has the longest infinity pool in the world, over 900 feet long, hundreds of feet in the air.
You really need to Google this pool.
And be very careful when you hop out.
Yeah.
Anyway, Angela overheard a couple, Dylan and Natasha, we'll call them, planning to buy and tear down a pristine Richard Neutra house in Los Angeles for a giant Italianate McMansion. Not on my watch, thought Angela, remembering how Priscilla Presley, yes, the one in Leslie Nielsen Naked Gun movies, ruined John Lautner's Gutgeld house in Los Angeles in a similar way years ago. Immediately, Angela flew to L.A. and persuaded billionaire rocket scientist race car driver Bruce Musk, no relation to Elon, to offer Natasha a CEO job in Dubai. Another case closed for Angela Roll, who uses her architectural training and American Airlines concierge key status to specialize in existing and new modernist houses, advising buyers and sellers on everything from appropriate renovation to picking the right damn house in the first place. Reach her at angelaroll.com, that's ROEHL, or 919-995-0550.
You may not know the name Charles Deaton, the architect, but it's likely you've seen the only house he designed and built in 1966 near Golden, Colorado. You can actually see it from the Interstate. It's called the Sculptured House, or as it later became known, the Sleeper House. And it became famous. What?
I'm just now realizing what house you're talking about.
The Sculptured House, or as it later became known, the Sleeper House, became famous through the Woody Allen movie of the same name in 1973. Deaton's projects included the Wyoming National Bank in Casper and the Harry S. Truman Sports Complex in Kansas City. Today we have with us on the show his daughter, Charlee Deaton. Welcome, Charlee.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for being with us.
It's great to be here.
So, Charlee, how did your dad get in design? Because I read he didn't come up the usual way.
Yes, he actually was a child of during the Depression, and he had a very artistic mother and a geologist, scientist father. And during the Depression, they moved to Oklahoma and settled on some property there and lived in a tent. And so, he had a very meager beginning, but always extremely curious and very adventuresome. So that was his beginning.
In a tent?
Yes, in a tent.
Now, did he go to school for architecture?
No, he didn't. He was self-taught. And he did a lot of, during the Depression years, too, when he was young, when he was a boy even, he started doing lettering and commercial art and hand lettering. And then they settled in Illinois for a while, and then he went on up to Chicago when he hadn't even finished high school and actually landed a job there doing commercial art, and then came back and finished his high school and went on to studying industrial design, and he invented games, Gusher, when he was 18 and manufactured that.
What was Gusher like?
Gusher was like a game that it showed a lot of different plots of land, and then you would have these little drills and these little holes and these different properties, and then you would drill for oil, and there were these little blocks underneath that you'd shake up the game and then shake up the board and then drill, and then if you hit oil, the little nail on the little drill rig would go up, and it was kind of a fun game.
Oil would spurt everywhere, and Mom would get mad?
No.
Okay.
This is kind of like Monopoly for oil?
Right.
Yeah. It was because, he grew up in Oklahoma, and so... And
of course, all those oil rigs.
Yeah. So, and then he had all these commercial art skills, and he designed this game, and he had this creativity that just was endless. Later on, he ended up in... during the war, he ended up in California working for a airplane manufacturer for the Army.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so he really got acquainted with all of this curvilinear design relating to architecture and everything else. He had cumulative knowledge with so many different areas. Went on to New York and worked for an architectural design firm in New York City, and taught at the Franklin School of Professional Arts. And there he met my mother, and who was working there, and married her, and they began their family. They ended up moving to St. Louis, and he worked for an architectural firm there where they designed retail and bank buildings. And then later in 1955, that's when he moved to Denver and started his own architectural firm and designed the Central Bank and Trust building, and also the Wyoming National Bank in Casper. After that, then he started the sculpture house. He started on that when I was even young. He was doing drawings of that and was dreaming about doing that for a long time. I would say it was like when I was a toddler, and then later on in the early 60s, then he was able to, really start working on that house.
What was the start of that house? Where did he get the idea from, or the desire to want to build it?
His inspiration for that type of curvilinear design was really inspired by making trips to the Carlsbad Caverns when he was young, and Mesa Verde, and cave-like dwellings. He really felt that humans weren't really meant to live in square boxes, that they felt more comfortable in a curvilinear environment. So that was his basic philosophy right there.
When I think of this house, and we're going to talk more about it, of course, I think immediately of the Jetsons, because this is the kind of house that
yes.
George and Jane Jetson would definitely live in.
Oh, that's what it's been called for many, many years.
The Jetson house?
It's been called the sleeper house, and my father always referred to it as the clamshell.
Okay.
Because that's kind of the shape of it, is the natural form of a clamshell. So that's what he used to call it.
Did he intend for you all to live there? Was it going to be your house?
Yes, yes. That was the intention. We actually grew up in a house just a little ways up the mountain there, Genesee Mountain, and it was an older house. And so even while it was being constructed, we were able to just walk down there and be part of the construction or visit the site during construction. Even one summer, he had us painting the skeletal metal structural pieces with rust repellent paint. And, he put us to work.
Yeah.
So what was reaction in Colorado to this house?
Oh, it was really a varied reaction. And I would say a lot of the neighbors, they didn't understand it. We were the odd family that lived up on Genesee. And
did they think you were aliens or something, or just crazy?
Yes, we were the aliens. We were the Jetson family. No.
You really were.
Yeah. So, we had that feeling just growing up. I have 2 other sisters, and we always knew that we were different. And that was fine.
So you are living in the house down the road. Young woman.
Which is not an outer space looking house, I'm
right,
assuming.
Just a regular house, watching this thing go up.
It's just a regular house.
Mm-hmm.
And did it get finished? What happened to it?
Well, let's say, so there were a number of things that happened during that time period. He was able to finish it to a certain point, and then he stopped. And he started working on other projects, too. He was working on the Key Savings and Loan project. And then he was also working on the Harry S. Truman Sports Complex, which is, the Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. So, it was very expensive at the time, what he had to put into it. And then, he was counting on monies coming through on the Arrowhead Stadium project. And then after that, it was kind of tragic because he ended up in a lawsuit with the stadium complex because the Kivett and Myers architectural group that worked under him, he was the primary architect, and they went into a lawsuit that lasted for 7 years.
Wow,
and
that's a long suit.
So it was a long drawn out, and it bled him emotionally, financially. Everything. It was very difficult.
Wow.
And
so what happened to the house?
And so the house just kind of was left there unfinished. So that's what happened with it for many, many years.
When was this period? The late 60s, 70s?
Late 60s. So then Arrowhead Stadium went into I guess that was completed. They opened in 1972. He even told me, he says, well, I've been chasing stadiums ever since then. He kept on trying to get these stadium jobs, but then they kept getting scooped up by these larger firms that had claimed that they had designed the Kansas City Stadium. It was just, it was tragic.
Well, then comes along 1972, 73, Woody Allen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Woody Allen came, and so that was kind of at least a fun moment for him.
How did he find out about this house?
They have scouts that go out and scout for different movies and location scouts. And so that's exactly how they found it. And then that was a real interesting time. I was actually gone at that time, but I was talking to my father, who said that meeting Woody Allen was really interesting, and that he actually would go in and play and play cards with him in his trailer that he had set up there. And
so if you haven't seen the movie Sleeper, it's a science fiction comedy about this guy from our time, or the 70s then, who wakes up in the future and has to deal with all the futuristic life. And most of the movie is set in this house, which is an amazing house for, I think, any year. It still looks way ahead of its time.
Basically, they filmed the exterior for that film. The interior was actually not finished at that time.
So it was a soundstage they used.
They had to create sets for that. Now,
there's one particular feature of the house that was made up that everybody talks about. Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yes.
You want to tell our listeners about how this works?
It's just an elevator. It's just a small elevator. That's all it is.
Okay.
And it actually, rotates as it goes up to each floor to where it opens the door. So,
but in the movie,
they call it something else. They
call the orgasmatron.
The orgasmatron. And the idea here was that in the future, People don't have time for sex. So they just hop in the orgasmatron, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, like a microwave.
Ding.
They pop out, and they're done. And they use the elevator as the orgasmatron, right?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
sure
isn't there a cigarette
I'm sure my
involved at
father
some
got a
point,
real
too?
kick out of that.
Yeah. And there's one great scene where Woody Allen has to hide from somebody, and the only place he can find to hide is in the orgasmatron. And he's in there like 2 minutes or something. And he comes out, and of course, he's completely fuse blown, because he's been there way too long. You don't stay in there but just a few seconds.
So it was an elevator? Oh.
Yeah, that was its real thing. The orgasmatron didn't actually
exist.
It
was an elevator. It was a very small elevator. In fact, the whole time that I was working on the house, they made sure that it still worked and everything was functioning with it. But I'm a little claustrophobic, so I didn't want to go in there and use it, actually, when I was working on the house. Later, when I was finishing.
Well, and a lot of times, an elevator is handy for like moving objects from floor to floor, like a freight elevator. It sounds like this wouldn't.
This one was very small. Very small. Just two people could barely get into it. And that was part of the comic gag there, is that people could just walk in like 1, 2, 3, and boom, they were done. Sex was seen as too time consuming to, be bothered with.
Wow, that's some prescient movie making there.
So the movie hits, and of course, it's very successful. What happened with your dad in the house at that point?
Well, like I said, he was working on other projects, and, he wasn't able to finish it until, he wasn't ever able to finish it until we came on the scene after he passed away. And
that's when it was sold to John Huggins?
Yes. Well, it was sold to actually a couple of other people first, I think, and then John Huggins was able to buy it. And he was an interesting man because he was a collector of classic older things, classic older cars and classic furniture and period piece type things. So, and because the house was so iconic to Denver, he did not want to see it completely go into ruin. So when he, acquired it and everything, he found out that actually my husband had been working with my father on the design for the addition, and then found out that I was an interior designer working with Nick as well. And so he hired us both, and it was just such a wonderful gift, to be able to work on that. And when my father had to sell it, his health deteriorated, and he just was forced to sell it. And none of us in the family could actually save it. I mean, we just weren't financially positioned to do that. So it was kind of sad to say goodbye to it. But so being able to finish it was just such a labor of love.
And what year was this?
We started working on it. He bought it, I think, in 1998, and then we started working on it in 99, and I think it was completed in 2000, or maybe it was 98 that we started on it. We took a lot of care, both of us, in making sure that we kind of kept, the same vision in mind that my father had for the house, and in a sense, we put our own signature on it as well, but all in keeping with the mid-century modern design.
Well, if I'm following the time frame correctly, it was really never finished until the early 2000s. It had gone 30-some years and not ever been completed. Right. Mm-hmm. So after it was completed, did the press come? Did the media come? And what happened when it was finally built?
Yes, actually, we were published a lot. I mean, actually more so internationally than nationally. Because the house was featured in so many different magazines, Japanese architectural magazines and Italian magazines, some wonderful photography done of the interior. And
do you feel like the house was ahead of its time, quite literally, in a way?
Yes, I think it was as well. In fact, my work was really hard because I was even trying, one of my father's favorite colors was that bright red orange that you're seeing a lot of right now. but
yeah, it's coming back.
And I was having trouble even finding upholstery fabric that had that bright red orange. It just wasn't available. So I used absolutely the latest and most modern hardware designs. I designed the cabinetry curvilinear built-ins that would conform to the curved walls. And the original house, he had the kitchen, we added, I think, we just doubled the size of the house. It was like,
How did you do that? Was it under the clamshell or out to the side of it, or?
Yes, well, actually, it runs under the base of the sculpture house, and so you don't really see the addition right off. I mean, there's like a whole patio on the top where you have the front entry door, and then underneath is the whole addition that just wraps around the mountain there with glass and opens up to the mountainside there. So I relocated the kitchen down in that area because it was, John Huggins wanted to have a lot of different gatherings and parties and that type of thing. So the space that he needed for a kitchen like that, he really needed to have it on the lower floor where there is a whole driveway that goes down into that area. Like I said, working with curvilinear walls was a challenge, but I loved doing it. And I had many people that I worked with that I would design everything, and then they would do my technical drawings for me, and I would lay out all the exact measurements and proportions and everything, and worked with fine woodworkers and put in the built-ins that I did. I designed them with exotic woods like Japanese tamo ash and African macrame. It was wonderful. I designed a carpet in the main living areas that were hand-tufted carpets that had the same pattern that echoed the design that my father did of a lighting system that had kind of a vermicelli pattern to it. And so kind of I wanted to have his signature, throughout.
What kind of pattern?
I kept all of the walls.
A vermicelli?
Vermicelli, it's kind of this very curvilinear pattern that he had designed, this lighting system.
Isn't there a pasta?
There's a pasta.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Chef Boyardee was involved in this renovation somewhere. Well, what happened next? Did Huggins keep the house, or how long did he hold on to it?
I'm not sure exactly. I don't have that information in front of me when he sold it. And he didn't hold on to it. I think he went into foreclosure, and then this other couple recently, or a few years back, bought it, and real nice family, and they love the house. And
they've kept it up.
They're living with it. They've kept it up. They're living in it. They have a real respect for it, and it has a good ending.
That's good, because it could have gone any number of ways over these decades.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The kind of architecture that your father did, I can compare to a couple of architects, but one that comes up right away is Zaha Hadid in Europe.
Yes. And also Gehry.
Frank Gehry.
Some of his curvilinear things. But, yeah, I would say her work is actually more like his than anything. It's just,
Did architects want to make the pilgrimage out to the house to see it in person?
Yes. A lot of different architectural groups have been out there and toured it. And
I was wondering, with just that one movie in the early 70s by Woody Allen, have there been other films or commercials or TV shows filmed there?
I think there was a fashion photography, some magazine that used it as a set for that, but I don't think so.
This house is so striking to see from the interstate that I can just see it capturing the imagination of every director in the western part of the United States. Who would not want to live in this Jetson house? I'm ready to go there now.
That's a long commute.
I know. It's my father had just such freedom of soul. And when he worked on that, when he was starting it even, he just really, he wanted it to be something that was unencumbered. Like he said, I want it to be, it's an unencumbered song. And that was like the song of his soul. Whatever we did with it and to finish it up, that was great. But his design just sings. and it will always, to me, it'll always sing.
Well, it's one of the most unique and special houses, I think, in the world. It's world class.
I was just thinking that, I mean, he was like some of the brilliant music composers. He was happiest when he was totally in control of his own composition.
Did he play an instrument? You're so musical here with your descriptions.
Yes, he did. He did. He played a violin, actually.
Oh.
And Christmas was his most favorite holiday. And we'd get together, and he plays violin, and my one sister played the piano, and, I mean, we just, had fun.
Have you gotten to spend the night in the house since it was completed?
No,
No?
No, it's not my house anymore. It's like one of those things where, you let it just move on. And I think one of the things that, he really did influence me with, too, was when I was in middle school, he went over to Japan and came back, and that aesthetic, that beautiful design aesthetic that the Japanese put into every detail with such grace and simplicity, that to me was one of the things that I really appreciated that he gave me. And that in mind helped me complete the house with whatever I could do with my talents toward that. So I am forever grateful for all of his creativity and his work ethic, everything he gave me.
Charlee, thank you so much for being on the show. It's really special to talk about your father and the house. And you can read more about Charles Deaton at usmodernist.org/Deaton, or Google for the sleeper house or the sculptured house, and you'll come up with many, many photos of this. Thanks again for joining us, Charlee.
Thank you.
Dropping by the studio, the Luca Colonna Trio. Jazz musicians Tyler Monroe on drums, Tim Reinhardt on bass, and Luca Colonna on keyboards. These three talented musicians have a combined age of 49. So you do the math. They are playing Come Rain and Come Shine.
So, Luca, how did you guys get together?
Well, me and Tyler, the drummer, go to school together. And then the bass player, Tim, I play with him at the Durham Jazz Workshop. So we all kind of know each other from around here.
How long have you been playing as a group?
We've been playing as a group, I would say, for a solid 6 months now, playing together. We meet over at Tim's house, so it's a lot of fun.
You got another song in you?
Yes, yeah, we do.
Which one?
Take the A Train.
Thanks for listening. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by Angela Roll, your special agent for Modernist Houses, 919-995-0550. Okay, take us home, Tom.
Visit usmodernist.org's massive archives to listen to past shows, discover 7,000 classic modernist houses, and access 2.5 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. U.S. Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song was performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl. New Chief of Guest Research Isabella Pomodoro denies any connection whatsoever to Cindy Stratton, whoever she is. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guile. I'll be back with George in 2 weeks with another genius edition of U.S. Modernist Radio.